Alright legends, so welcome along to Here's Rodder's Reviews, and we're continuing on with the Ghostbusters movies. In this one we're doing the 2016 Ghostbusters. Ghostbusters Answer the Call, if you will. This is the female-led Ghostbusters, and one that I wasn't a big fan of, and still I'm not. I gave it another watch this morning actually before I did this video just to refresh myself on it. And it's one of these things where it's just, you kind of think to yourself when you watch the odd movie, how did this get greenlit in the first place? Now, I'm not going to get into the whole thing of, if anybody's going to get upset and jump into the comments and start, oh, sexist this, sexist that. It's nothing to do with the female-led Ghostbusters and whatnot. This could quite easily have worked, this movie, if they had done it sensibly. And when I say sensibly, I'm like, modify the story. And, okay, if Ghostbusters Afterlife happened first, then Frozen Empire, of course, happened before this movie, and you modified this story to not be a reset of the Ghostbusters, but to take place in the same universe as Afterlife and Frozen Empire, this could quite easily have worked. This could be like a different team of Ghostbusters set in the same universe. It might have worked then. There's a lot of stuff in this movie that does work. There's a hell of a lot of stuff in this movie that doesn't work. But, as I say, if they had have respected what came before them, this could quite easily have worked. Now, that's where I believe this movie fell to pieces. It's not because it's a female-led Ghostbusters. It's because they were like, okay, you've got this massive history of fandom of the Ghostbusters. We're just gonna, throw it out the window, reset everything, and like, we are the first, we're the original, nothing else happened beyond what happens in this movie. This is why this movie failed in my mind. But there's a lot of people that were introduced to the Ghostbusters through this movie, and that's fine. If this is your Ghostbusters, you're not wrong. It is what it is. Again, you're not right. If this is what your intro to the Ghostbusters was, I'm happy for you. But someone like myself that grew up with the Ghostbusters, whenever the first movie came out, I was 5, 6 years old whenever that movie first came out. So I was the target audience for the real Ghostbusters cartoon, and got most of the toys bought to me. I'm not even going to start searching for them right now. They are here somewhere. Yeah, so when you think to yourself, okay, someone actually sat down in an office and says, okay, we're going to do another Ghostbusters movie. What way are we going to work this? Somebody comes up with like, oh, let's throw everything out and do a reboot. And like, that's a brilliant idea. Yeah, I don't think that was a good idea whatsoever. But as I say now, there's a lot of stuff in this movie that worked. Some of the humour worked well in it. When I say some of the humour, I laughed hard maybe once in the entire movie. Most of it was ridiculous. I don't even know why the hell Chris Hemsworth decided to do this movie. Yeah, it's just, I don't know, there's just some decisions that somebody makes and you think to yourself, okay, yeah, I know it's like a Ghostbusters movie and it's a chance of a lifetime to get into one, but did you even properly read the script before you came into work this morning? But it is what it is. Let me see now, you've got the basic story for the Ghostbusters here. You've two friends, you've got Abby and Aaron, that co-wrote a book called Ghosts from Our Past, that aren't really speaking anymore. they eventually get together in the movie, see their first ghost along with their friend. And I'm not even going to get into the massive details of this movie. It's a similar sort of story to the original Ghostbusters. You know, they get kicked out of a university. Two, in fact. Of course, they're not talking because Kristen Wiig's character wants to get tenure at where she works at. She doesn't get it because of the whole Ghostbusters thing. Of course, Melissa McCarthy's character, she gets kicked out of the other place because the people that run it didn't even remember that she was there, sort of thing. So, you know, stupid parts of the movie is like, you know, whenever she gets kicked out of her place and the guy starts flipping the bird at her was ridiculous, completely stupid. The the nod to Harold Ramis was nice, and it had a little bust of him in the background and one of the shots. Yeah, but as we're moving forward in the movie, there's a guy that's trying to bring about the end of the world because he was been bullied his entire life. So he's making these machines that kind of draw on psychic turbulence and concentrate ghosts, attract them and whatnot. So he's trying to charge the ley lines and whatnot to break through to this other realm and bring forth the end of the world, which he manages to do after taking himself out at one point in the movie. And he comes back as a ghost to finish what he started whenever he was living. And, you know, you do get a similar sort of thing to, you know, choose the form of the destructor at the end of this movie. And he actually comes back as a ghost of a physical manifestation of the ghost that's in the no ghost symbol of the Ghostbusters. So huge, walking about New York City, destroying it. The Ghostbusters managed to close the rift by blowing up the Acto 1 inside the mouth of the rift, which has been hijacked and taken for a joyride by Slimer at this point. So, yeah, you get a lot of the similar stuff that you're used to. There's the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man shows up at one point, but he's a giant inflatable on a parade in this movie. Yeah, so yeah, all's well that ends well at the end of the movie. One aspect of the movie that I really didn't like was the fact that the government and the mayor and everything was actually on board with the Ghostbusters the whole way through the movie, but when it comes to the media, they had to pretend that they weren't. So you had all this background stuff where, like, you know, we're fully supporting you guys, but they get in front of the news cameras and they're like, oh, they're insane, take them away, lock them up, all that sort of stuff. Yeah, so the end of the movie, they managed to get the firehouse given to them, and yeah, there's a post-credit sequence with Leslie Jones's character and the rest of the Ghostbusters sitting about, and she's listening to this recording that they've gotten from somewhere, and she's like, I've just heard something really weird. What's Zool? So after this movie, they were intending to move forward and take on the Gozer the Gozerian story. So thankfully that didn't happen, and the movie it made money. It did make money. The budget for it was 144 million, and at the box office it made 229.1 million. So, you know, it's a good, decent bit of money that it brought in. But as it's moved forward, the fandom just didn't take to this movie at all. And yeah, thankfully, Afterlife came along shortly after this. For me, in recent years, and I've said it in reviews of other things on the channel here, I remember when actors used to have a respect for their franchise and stood up for what they believed in whenever it came to the characters they played and whatnot. You had the old actors for Doctor Who and whatnot. I believe John Pertwee was an example I used not that long ago. who apparently was a huge chain smoker in his personal life, but because he knew that a lot of the characters he played had a lot of fallen from children, he tried his best and to make sure that he was never caught with a cigarette in public, because he knew that people looked up to him and he didn't want to promote something unhealthy. So you're starting to see it, and more whenever it comes to projects where actors are just like, okay, we're going to get paid. Let's just do this and we'll get the payday. It is what it is. This is what happened with the Ghostbusters here. Now, they had a hard time getting this off the ground for years. Everybody was on a third Ghostbusters movie. It was always in question whether it was going to happen or not. Bill Murray was usually the one holding the whole thing back. But he's back in this movie for a cameo. You've got everybody else back in there. Sigourney Weaver shows up at the end of the movie as well. Let me just say they Dan Aykroyd, I liked his appearance in this movie as a taxi driver. That was funny. Bill Murray in this movie was one of these characters that debunks supernatural stuff and TV and whatnot, and he's in there to try and discredit the Ghostbusters in this movie. Not a great character, didn't like that one. Ernie Hudson shows up at the very end of the film. He's the uncle to Leslie Jones's character, so the actor one in this movie is a hearse that's owned by her uncle. So this guy's referred to as her uncle throughout the whole movie, but of course at the end of it, we've lost the actor one because they blew it up to close the portal. And Ernie Hudson shows up at the end of the movie at the firehouse, complaining that he needs this car back. Where's it at? And whatnot. Cut the credits. You get a few post-credit sequences in there where Sigourney Weaver shows up as a mentor to Kate McKinnon's character, and that was just embarrassing. And yeah, very, very underwhelming for me as a fan growing up in this. I do remember whenever this was coming out, there was a shot popped up, and I was cruising through Twitter one day, like late 2015, before this movie was released, and this photograph popped up, and it was the cast of Melissa McCarthy, Kristen Wiig, Kate McKinnon and Leslie Jones in the Ghostbusters outfits with the proton packs on, and they're standing in front of the actor one from the movie. I honestly thought, whenever I seen that photograph at the start, is this like a photograph from Comic-Con? Because I didn't even realise, just a quick glance at the photograph, didn't even realise that it was Melissa McCarthy and the rest of them in there. It just looked like a bunch of fans that had came up with had no money to create a cosplay costume for the Ghostbusters, and half-assed a car to get them there. That's literally what it looked like to me as a fan whenever I first seen the first photograph that was released from this movie. Just very, very underwhelming, and I'm pretty glad that Ghostbusters is now going the way that's going with Afterlife and Frozen Empire. I've said it before, and I'll say it again about a lot of movies. You don't go into a Ghostbusters movie expecting Shakespeare. You go in there expecting to get entertained, have a good time with it. For the most part, this movie's okay. Ghostbusters 2016. There's good stuff in there. There's bad stuff in there. It's like a 50-50 split for me. The humour in this movie didn't really work for me in the slightest. It was too much of the kind of humour where they can't crack a joke and move forward. It's like, we'll crack a joke, get the laugh, and then we're going to beat it to death to try and get as many laughs out of this one joke as we can. You got that a lot in this movie. Very, very tiresome, very, very quickly. but an Afterlife and Frozen Empire at this point, the humour in it is subtle and it's just nice. And I enjoyed equally Afterlife and Frozen Empire. We'll get into that in the next couple of videos. But yeah, the only thing I can say about this movie is, once again, if they respected, Ghost Corps respected in 2016 what they were building upon from Ghostbusters and Ghostbusters 2, the real Ghostbusters, all the other spin-off shows and comic books, the rich history of the Ghostbusters, they had to have respected all of that and really thought this through. Again, this movie and this cast of characters could well have worked if it was still on the drawing board now in 2024. And they did Ghostbusters Afterlife, Frozen Empire, and then considered a different version of this script and story using the same cast. You know, the Ghostbusters, obviously, and the universe where they're going now, they're trying to expand it. So, you know, if they are going to expand the Ghostbusters, they could have quite easily, again, reconsidered this script, this group of characters, brought them into the existing universe. It could have worked. But, unfortunately, you had the movement destroy it for us. Yeah, I think that's all I'm going to say about this movie. So, if this was your introduction to the Ghostbusters, I'm happy for you. But as someone that grew up as a fan from small childhood right up to adult life, not for me.